D&D 2024 had a bunch of new changes, and there's so much to go over, but for now, I wanted to take a look at all of the spells, specifically the building blocks of any good spellcaster, cantrips. So I sat down with my good buddy Jake from J&J Tabletop and went over every single change for all of the cantrips. Now, I do want to say there were a lot of changes from 5e to 2024. However, there might not be as many as you think looking at the D&D Beyond spell list. That's because any change to a spell, even something as small as adding a period or a capitalization to a letter, was labeled as a new spell in 5e to 2024. So, in this video, we kind of talk about that, but we really only go into depth with these spells that mechanically changed from 5e to 2024. So if you don't hear anything about Firebolt or Eldritch Blast, that's because it hasn't mechanically changed. But with that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump into the conversation. Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm joined here with my good friend Jake from State J, and Jay, that just kind of slipped out. That really did just kind of slip out.
Believe it or not the first time I've gotten that.
We're going to go over all of the new spells. Well, actually, in this video, we're going to go over just the new cantrip changes for D&D 5.24. You know, we've all seen the changes. We all heard the outrage on the internet about everything being updated, and we figured we'd take a look at all of them. And I spent way too much time one night literally writing everything down. So my good buddy Jake here is going to shift through it all with me and talk about it. The first spell, Acid Splash. Now, that's a good spell. It was a good spell. Is it still a good spell?
I like the new one better, and it's really, they changed it from you choose one or two creatures that have to be next to each other to just, you hit a 5-foot radius. It's just like Baldur's Gate 3. This is beautiful.
Yeah.
Clean, simple, little minion control options.
Mm-hmm.
I like it.
I do like it a lot. I think the last one in 5e, because the last one in 5e was just like one creature in range of 5 feet, right? Whereas now it's just a radius around you. Yeah, I mean, it's just cleaner. It feels better. It has more clarification with it being a 5-foot radius in the tooltip, as well as the fact that it changes to an evocation spell, which might not mean much with the new subclasses, but it's still interesting that they did it anyways.
I like it.
Yeah, I'd say good change.
Yeah.
Next up, Blade Ward. This was an interesting change because, and it's actually a change that I personally really liked how they did it. Previously, Blade Ward would, I believe, give you resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, or slashing damage for a round at the cost of your action. But now, what it does is it just, whenever a creature hits you with an attack, you subtract d4 from the attack roll, or when they go to hit you with an attack. So it's like a bane almost, a personal bane. I think it's pretty cool.
Absolutely. I think because a lot of like Magic Knight style characters get the option of extra attack to be able to sub in a cantrip as one of the attacks. Like if you're an Eldritch Knight, you could make an attack and then throw this up and now you're going to be good. I think this is fantastic. A lot of people are going to just sit there and be like, well, if you're going to spend your action, just take the dodge action and your disadvantage is mathematically superior to... It's like, yeah, this is something that could last for an entire minute. Like, just put the math away for a moment and just breathe, switch to decaf, and realize the length of time here is the point of emphasis. Obviously, the dodge action in one turn is more powerful, but it's not a one-to-one comparison. So
yeah, this
goes from something that's largely just useless to something that is extremely usable and something that a lot of warrior mages are going to want to have in their backpack.
You know, it's interesting that you brought up the fact that there's other like spell melee players that can, you know, use another cantrip as they take the attack action. I didn't even consider that, and that makes this so much better than I even thought about in the first place. And the fact that it lasts a minute rather than a round is also pretty huge. So
it's nice to have something you can concentrate on without using a spell slot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, honestly, Blade Ward, I think that's a huge buff. Huge improvement on Blade Ward. You know, that's 2 spells out of the way, and already, so far, my judgment is that everyone's freaking out about nothing. Everything's perfect, smelling like roses, right? Nothing
Totally
bad
fine.
yet.
Nothing to see here.
All right, Chill Touch. This one was kind of interesting change. I wasn't... Well, let's talk about it. Chill Touch, previously, it was a ranged spell attack where a spooky hand touched someone and it dealt a D8 of damage and then they can't regain hit points, which was really cool thematically. But the new version, it's a melee spell attack, which deals 1d10 damage. So they effectively, and has the same hit point effect as well. So they changed it from a ranged 120 foot to a melee spell and just added a d10 to it instead of a d8.
To me, massive nerf, but again, I think it's just because range is always going to be superior.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But again, I think you're just looking at warrior mages for me.
You know what's funny is when I started playing 5e and I heard the spell Chill Touch, I was like, oh, that's cool. It's like sapping energy from someone. And then it turns out it was a ranged spell attack. I was like, well, that doesn't make sense. It's stupid. And the more I played, I was like, well, this spell's actually really good. And now they put it
the
back
name
to
just sucks.
Yeah, the name's terrible. Yeah. Exactly. But it's definitely, I think, this is a nerf. But honestly, can't win them all. Yeah, I don't think Dancing Lights actually really changed. I think they just adjusted some of the verbiage here and added some dim light information.
I mean, a lot of people watching this video are going to want us to go into line by line the differences.
Yeah, okay, so I'm going to read Dancing Lights now. So here we go. You
No.
create up to 4 torch-sized lights within range. They hover for the duration. They do shed dim light in a 10-foot radius. As a bonus action, you can move them up to 60 feet. Okay. I think the new version does the exact same thing.
I thought you were reading the new version, so that says a lot.
It's the same damn thing. I think folks. I actually think the only difference here is on D&D Beyond, they hyperlinked dim light to the rules in the 2024 book.
There you go. Quality of life adjustment.
Quality of life change. Well done. Well done. Should have done it well before, but well done now. Druidcraft. I think this is the exact same thing, only they changed the little bullet points to just names of things.
They named the effects.
Yeah, they named the effects, which is cool.
Yeah.
I think, weather sensor, bloom,
Yeah, what's
fire
name?
play,
Yeah,
Eldritch
I'm
Blast.
here for it.
Again, another spell that was just verbiage changed. Nothing actually adjusted here. It's all still 1d10 force damage, still 120 foot range, still same number of beams, everything like that. I think the next one that actually changed, well, Firebolt, same thing. Nothing changed. I'm not doing this again. They added a burning hyperlink. Friends was the next thing that changed.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, this one was interesting because it doesn't seem like a big change, but it is a pretty big change. Previously, Friends was a minute cast on yourself concentration where you would have advantage on all your charisma checks against one creature for that entire minute. But after that minute, that creature realizes they were charmed and is immediately hostile towards you, which specifically states a creature prone to violence might attack you. So not necessarily the best to use in difficult situations. The new version, it's a 10-foot range, same 1 minute concentration, but you can magically emanate a sensor of friendship towards one creature, and that creature must make a wisdom save or become charmed for the duration. So it's a completely different effect, charmed condition. It's not guaranteed advantage, it is charmed. And it also doesn't necessarily say that a creature prone to violence might attack you. It just says that they know they will be charmed. They were charmed if it ends early.
I think Friends was always one of those things where you're like, I'm just not going to do it, because if it fails, like you said, a creature prone to violence is going to attack you. And here, charmed is something that's significant, and it's something that could be useful in the right situation. Depending on whatever your goals are for your cantrips and stuff like this, this is actually something I would consider now, which is definitely says something.
Yeah, I think it's a something significant to mention is that prior, the initial cantrip in 5e was guaranteed advantage on charisma checks, whereas this is a wisdom save for charmed effect. So,
well, it does say social advantage is part of the charmed condition, so that's...
Yeah, but before it was just a guaranteed advantage. Now you have to fail a save to get that advantage. Or you have to
I understand.
succeed on a save to get the advantage.
I think that's fair. I personally like the change. I also think that this isn't something that if, a ton of tables just ignore somatic things. So like you have to kind of plan for it a little bit, right? So you're going to cast it and then you just have this charming aura around you. I tend to like that. That fits for a cantrip for me. So
yeah, I think
I like this change.
A good change. I do like the previous version, but at the same time, I think guaranteed advantage for a cantrip is a bit powerful, even though it does have an obvious downside to it. But I do think that this is kind of a theme that they've done with 5.24, where they've thrown everything into a very similar lane of how it functions, and we'll see that when we get into the other spells. Next up, guidance. This
hate guidance.
You want to talk about guidance?
I got feelings on guidance.
Well, why don't you talk about what it used to do and what it does now?
Well, the old one's freaking action, verbal and somatic, and we just talked about with friends. Everybody just ignores that. It's like, hey, I'm going to talk to the king. I'm going to cast a spell. That's what 20 arrows come flying at you. But okay, once before the spell ends is a legacy version. Target can roll a d4 and add the number to one rolled ability check of its choice. Cool. It's simple. I hated it because it was like cast guidance, 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 cast guidance. And it's just like, oh my god, make it stop. Here, it's now you have to touch a willing creature. Same thing, but you have to choose a specific skill rather than just one ability check of its choice. You choose the skill, and until the spell ends, which is a whole minute, a d4 to any ability check made using this skill. They buffed it. Hey, Jeremy, it isn't strong enough? Guidance.
It's not one roll, it's any roll in that entire minute. Now,
well, it's that skill, so I mean, like, you make 17 stealth checks, they all get the d4.
I mean, screw friends, just here you go, persuasion. Boom, guidance.
There you go.
You know what I mean? Yeah, it's not advantage, but it's still pretty darn good.
Well, mathematically speaking, advantage is superior to a d4.
Nuts. Oh, well. I lost my nerd glasses.
Yeah. In case you're not sure, guidance applies to any possible skill, not just social ones. So here you go. Boom.
Yeah, exactly. They buffed it. So, I mean, it doesn't change anything from just being... Well, I mean, I guess it does spare the spamming of guidance because it's now just a one-time thing over a minute, right? So,
I'm still mad about it.
Yeah, I know.
Personally.
Oh, well,
it's fine. Is this just a me issue? Let us know.
Yeah, please let us know. If you're a DM, let us know. And if you're a player, also put that in your comment as well so we know who we're listening to or reading from. All right, next up, we have, moving from guidance, light.
Let there be light.
Interesting change to light. It's, I think it's a very minimal difference here. And I think the only thing is a verbiage difference and then an update to how it deals with hostile creatures. I'm gonna double check this, but if you target an object held or worn by a hostile creature, the creature must make a dexterity saving throw to avoid the spell. That's the previous version of it. The new version of it, I believe, does not have that at all.
Still says dex save on D&D Beyond in the spell list.
But it doesn't actually... Oh, it does have that, but it doesn't
just
say
like
that.
in the little info section above the description.
The tooltip, yeah.
I'm not saying there actually is one. But here we are.
Well...
I don't know.
Which is it? Let us know in the comments below.
What is the most ability associated with avoiding the light? I guess it's dexterity.
I guess it's gotta be dex. That's really funny. Yeah, okay, so light changed. Mage Hand, another minor change, with the only actual difference being some small verbiage updates, as well as the fact that the new version, never mind, Mage Hand stayed the same. Poison Spray, this one's interesting. Here we go.
As an action, 10-foot range. You extend your hand toward a creature you can see within range and project a puff of obnoxious gas from your palm.
Obnoxious gas?
Of course it's obnoxious. Anyways, the creature must succeed on a Constitution saving throw or take 1d12 poison damage. And of course, the damage scales as per the usual damage scaling.
Yeah.
Now it's a 30-foot range. It got buffed.
It did get buffed, which is actually huge because 10-foot range was nothing for a caster.
And it's not a con save.
Yeah, it's a ranged spell attack, which is really nice.
Something to consider.
It is massive to consider because that makes it immediately more useful in higher level combat situations.
Actually, though, since it still targets poison and 50% of the damage to creatures,
Yep. Like, if you want to get really nitty gritty, 25% of all creatures in D&D are resistant, and another 25% of creatures in D&D are immune to poison damage. So, I get it. That was in 5e. I'm gonna have to do the actual numbers again for 2024, but I'm assuming they didn't change much of that.
Once they show them.
Exactly. Once I get my early access to the monster manual. Whatever.
Yeah, they didn't send me one.
Yeah.
The only thing I will say about this is a lot of classes can swap out cantrips and things on certain rests and stuff like that. So if you're going up against people that you know are resistant or immune to poison, obviously you're going to put this on the shelf. But if you're going up against like just regular humanoids, fans, dwarves, you know, you're going to be, this is better. So
yeah. Eldritch
there's
Blast
a lot here.
too?
There's a lot here. This is now more viable. And that's a good thing.
I think it's a great change. I love it. Produce Flame. I think this one did have some minor changes. Because Produce Flame was always a wonky cantrip where you had like an action to make a flame, and then you had an action where you could throw the flame as well. So it was kind of like a pseudo utility, pseudo attack spell, right?
Yeah, kind of like you'd have to prep it ahead of time.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Yeah, it was really like, weird feeling. But that's why it was like a pseudo utility, pseudo attack spell. Previously, you would create a flame, however you were producing the flame, as an action. And as an action on a later turn, you could hurl that flame with a ranged spell attack, dealing 1d8 fire damage on a hit. So 2 turns to effectively get any combat utilization out of it. It's a 30-foot range, and it had 10-foot radius of bright light and then dim light as well. The new version, it's got a 20-foot radius of dim light, or bright light and dim light. So it's increased in the radius. Same action to create the fire, but once that fire is in your hand, it is then a bonus action to make that ranged spell attack with a 60-foot range.
I think you might have that backwards. It's a bonus action to create it.
Oh, is it backwards?
To make the attack, yeah.
Okay, sorry. It's a bonus action to make the flame, and then
but here you are, round 1.
Yeah.
Here you are.
With a 60-foot range, so it's much farther as well.
Yeah.
I still don't like the spell as an attack spell, per se, but I do think it's a nice change, especially with the light addition of an extra 20 feet.
One thing I will say about this is that it is sort of like combining the light cantrip and the firebolt cantrip. Sort of.
Pretty much.
Obviously not exactly the same, but you're kind of getting a 2-for-1 deal here. So the fact that it's not quite as good as either works for me because it sort of does both.
Yeah. Ray of Frost had some slight verbiage changes. I think really nothing adjusted there, which is a bummer because it's one of my favorite cantrips. But maybe it's not a bummer because they could have ruined it if they did. So I'll take it.
This one didn't need to change, I don't think.
Yeah. Resistance. This is one that I'm actually very excited about with how it changed, because it's something that I've personally played around with custom spells. In the past, it was a range of touch spell, concentration for up to a minute, and whenever you cast it on a creature, the target can roll a d4 and add that number to a saving throw whenever it has to make a saving throw. So it's like an extra d4 bless on a saving throw. What it is now is something completely different, where it's still a concentration up to a minute, where you choose a damage type, being acid, bludgeoning, cold, fire, lightning, necrotic, poison, piercing, radiant, or slashing or thunder damage. And when a creature takes that damage before that spell ends within that entire minute of concentration, that total damage is reduced by a d4. So it's just damage reduction. Yeah,
this is interesting too, because it isn't just for yourself. So there's some... It opens up that lane. I think it's just, again, if you're surrounded by like magma methods and you know you're just going to get pelted with fire damage, you know, maybe one of those warrior mages decides, all right, instead of making both attacks, I don't know, that might be a bad example because maybe they're able to take 2 actions off the board. But the general concept of being able to say, like, I might be getting a certain type of damage from multiple sources, or if maybe I'm just melee and they're shooting me at range and I'm just going to throw that up for piercing because I'm going to get peppered with arrows as I'm running towards something, there could be some value there. I think it's interesting. I feel like, I don't know, I'm not overly impressed by it.
If anything, I'm happy that they're playing around with the concept.
That's really the biggest thing there. Yeah.
You know, it's not great. It can only benefit from once per round, which is really not great. But what it does, I'm excited about what it could become, right?
Okay, I think the once per round, is that per damage type, or just I couldn't cast resistance on you and then you cast resistance on you and then someone else and you're like, cool, I'm resistant to piercing, poison, and radiant. I think that's...
I have no idea. Maybe. Either way...
Yeah.
Either way, it could be improved upon, right? Being quite honest, I've never seen someone use resistance successfully or ever really want to use the legacy version of resistance.
Yeah.
To be frank. And this new version, at least while it isn't super impressive in what it can do, I can at least see where it would be useful, and what it could be doing, or what it's supposed to be doing, is something that excites me, right? The damage reduction is something that I think it needs more of in the game. So if anything, it's probably, like, honestly a neutral change for me at this point. Maybe a little bit more positive, but I am excited about the possibility of more damage reduction in the game, rather than just resistance or vulnerable, you know?
The fact that it's concentration that lasts for an entire minute does add a little layer there.
I am excited to see what comes from that, but it's at least a significant change, if nothing else. All right, next up, Sacred Flame had a verbiage change with some hyperlinks added into the description to talk about half cover and 3/4 cover. Shillelagh had a slight change where they clarified something where in 2014, your weapon's damage would become a D8, just base. But in 2024, it is a D8 of force damage, which is very significant.
It's extremely significant, and the fact that the damage scales, just like cantrip damage, although I personally get angry when you turn my D12 into a 2D6, I still want my D12. Just my own take on that. I think people, those math warriors come out.
Actually,
just half a point of damage more. It's like, yes, but if you need to kill someone because you need to deal an 8, 9, 10, or 11, or 12, you want the D12.
Yes.
Kill the whole action from the board to begin with. But anyways, what I really like about Shillelagh is how it interacts with Magic Initiate.
Care to elaborate? I don't know what you're insinuating.
So Shillelagh lets you use your spellcasting ability modifier instead of strength for your melee attacks with that weapon.
Yes.
If you choose Magic Initiate Druid with Shillelagh, but you're an Eldritch Knight, I choose Intelligence.
Oh.
Or I want to be a Paladin and I want to choose Magic Initiate, Druid.
Charisma.
I'm choosing Charisma. Now I don't have. Now my ability score investment changes drastically. This is a very tiny change, but it's very large-reaching possibilities. So I think you're going to see a lot of staff wielding paladins, a lot of staff wielding rangers that choose to take Shillelagh because they took that fighting style that lets them take that. There's some fun things you can play with here.
Interesting. I didn't even consider that. That's a good point.
Yeah, we made a video about it. We made a video about it on J&J, but it's like,
Shillelagh isn't actually still that strong.
Dude, Shillelagh is one of those spells that I have not looked at because I've been one of those people where I was like, Shillelagh is cool, but it's not, nothing crazy, right? But that's interesting. I didn't even.
But the fact that it also turns it's like I have a D12 one-handed weapon with a shield.
The cantrip upgrading,
I'm just the paladin, just bopping you over the head with a stick. follow old Rafiki. He knows the way. You know what I mean? Like, here we go. That's Shillelagh right there.
That's great. Oh, man. That's really good. I didn't even consider that. I loved it. All right, next up, Shocking Grasp. In one of the most shameless changes in the entirety of the 2024 edition. Previously, Shocking Grasp would deal a d8 of lightning damage on a hit, and a creature could not take a reaction until the start of their next turn. The new version does the exact same thing. However, if you read previously, in 2014, you have advantage on the attack roll if the target is wearing armor made of metal. That is nowhere to be seen in the new version, which is a big bummer, because I thought that was kind of thematically cool.
Yeah, well, there is another change. I mean, instead of removing their reactions, it just removes the target's ability to make opportunity attacks.
Huge.
That's big. So there would be a strategy where you're like, I don't want to get counterspelled. Hey, you Eldritch Knight, go up next to that wizard and make sure they can't counterspell me.
Yep.
Well, they still could if they wanted.
That's actually a massive change.
Yeah. Overall, again, I think this is in that like Eldritch Knight, Warrior Mage lane of places where you might look to use Shocking Grasp, but it helps mobility, and that's a nice thing.
Yeah, probably good too that you can't use a cantrip to remove reactions anymore entirely. Overall, for the health of the game, I think it would be kind of silly, but I get it. Yeah,
I think that's fair.
I think it's fair. Now, there is something that I didn't write here that is worth bringing up. There is a new cantrip that they added.
Are you just bursting at the seams to tell us about it?
Don't you fucking...
Here we go.
I actually haven't read it yet, so I just wrote it down. It's a 120-foot range invocation cantrip as an action. You cast your sorceress energy at one creature or object within range, making a ranged spell attack against the target. On hit, they take 1d8 damage of your type, being acid, cold, fire, lightning, poison, psychic, or thunder. And if you roll an 8 on a d8 for this spell, you can roll another d8 and add it to the damage. Oh.
Like rolling doubles in Monopoly.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go. Go again, you.
When you cast a spell, the maximum number of these d8s you can add to the spell's damage equals your spellcasting ability modifier. So you could effectively roll 3 or 4 d8 if you rolled a bunch of 8s. That is so insane.
Yeah.
And I always love to, when I'm playing D&D, I love to roll the dice. And I mean that in both the gambling addiction problem and the D&D way.
Fair enough.
I made a whole video on Chromatic Orb with the percentage chance of it jumping by rolling 2 of the same number, man. Like, I love this kind of random, like, jackpot playing D&D. It's fun.
Yeah. The only thing about it that is a little, just a little bit of a turn off for me is like, if I'm going to do something like a Ray of Frost, I'm also reducing speed or Shocking Grasp. Like there's no other effect to it. But the fact that it can hit all those damage types, you got to consider that.
I mean, this just could replace any other cantrip for damage at least, just because of that, for getting over resistances. But this is effectively like the, slot machine of firebolts. You're taking less damage than Firebolt or Eldritch Blast. You're taking less effects than Ray of Frost, and more damage than Mindslaver, but a significantly worse effect. No effect. So you're definitely taking it to overcome resistances and to play a jackpot game. So
definitely.
I think it's kind of cool. I love it.
It's fun.
Yeah, it's fun. And that's what D&D is all about. Having fun with your friends and not talking shit about people on the internet.
Wait, but that's good for the algorithm.
Wait a minute. What do you think of Sorcerous Burst? Let us know in the comments below. Do you have a gambling addiction?
Ting, 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 ting.
Exactly. Oh man, so much money lost. Spare the Dying. Previously, it was an action to cast a touch cantrip where you would touch a creature who had 0 hit points and they immediately become stable. Boom.
Yeah, the difference is now it can affect undead and constructs.
Ta-da! With a 15-foot range.
Yeah. Ooh, yeah.
And it doubles as it scales. So at level 5, it scales to 30 feet.
Oh my god.
Yeah, so if you don't have any spell slots left to cast that healing word, spare the dying.
Yep.
Yeah, nice quality of life. We have a new cantrip added to the game with Starry Wisp. Wow, I know, 2 whole new cantrips in the new update. Sorry, that's going to take a while to say. This is a cantrip with 1 action, 60-foot range. Make a ranged spell attack against the target. On a hit, the target takes 1d8 radiant damage, and until the end of your next turn, emits dim light in a 10-foot radius and can't benefit from being invisible.
I love this. I adore this. A lot of people are going to be like, it doesn't do anything. It just stops somebody from becoming invisible. Tell that to your halfling wizard like we have in Eve of Ruin, who really would appreciate having the ability to see a target.
Yep.
Just saying.
Yep.
And it's nice for classes like the Bard and the Druid to have a classic ranged spell attack. So, because it hits those 2 class lists. So, I love this. Is it the most powerful one in the game? No, but does it do nice things? It sure does. It sure does.
Cantrips, they need more cantrips in the game. You know, cantrips are the bread and butter of... Cantrips are kind of like the building block and staples of casters, right? And casters...
You have to have nice options to fall on, yeah.
And there's some casters definitely get the better end of the stick with this one. So I like that they're adding more cantrips. They could very well be adding more. But this is a good start, and I do think this is interesting because it does something that no other cantrip does. And like you said, it doesn't do anything. Well, it kind of does if you're playing with the correct rules, with like dim light and dark light and stuff like that. Like he was just talking about, if you can't see anything in the dark, well, sucks to suck, nerd. You can't do anything.
By the way, you should totally watch our Eve of Ruin playthrough. We just switched to the rules, but like, we have a blast.
5 attacks. Links in the actually. I'll put a clip here of something funny happening. Ooh.
So many attacks. Poor Josh. Yeah. You made such a wonderful bill.
It's so good, and the new feats really sell it too. Oh yeah, so go check out Eve of Ruin. It's a lot of fun. Link in the description below. I think we got like 6 episodes out now, so it's a blast. You'll enjoy it. You'll have a fun time. And then you can tell us how we're playing the new 5.24 wrong as well. Thaumaturgy. This one, I think they also just gave fancy names to all of the effects.
Altered eyes, booming voice, fireplay, invisible hand, phantom sound, and tremors.
Oh, jeez. Yeah,
that's
no
radio
actual
voice.
Difference, just fancy names. Thorn Whip. Same exact thing, I think. I don't think they actually changed anything about Thorn Whip when I looked at it the first time, but I'm double checking now to see if I missed anything. Yeah, it's the same setup. Yep.
Tell us in the comment section if we're wrong.
Because we're definitely gonna be wrong about something.
No.
All right. Next up, let's save that one for last, because that one's the fancy one. Let's go to Vicous Mockery. This one had a small change where they made it, instead of a D4, they made it a D6.
Thank the Lord.
Is so much better. Bards everywhere. Sigh relief.
Yep.
I mean, I guess it doesn't necessarily matter too much because they also have the Starry Wisp now as well. But Vicous Mock, you want to damage someone by calling them an idiot, right? That's
you got
the
options.
whole thing.
Yeah.
It needed the update.
Like,
it needed that.
No, you made fun of me.
It doesn't seem like much. A D4 to a D6 does not seem like much.
When I was in the 4th grade, Billy used to take my lunch coppers.
Oh, I'm getting flashbacks. I know you wouldn't understand this because you're so old, but back when after lunch we would go into the school courtyard and play Yu-Gi-Oh cards, and I was the only one who didn't have a Blue Eyes White Dragon. If you understand the reference, let me know.
And if you're too old like me, let
him know. All right, now we saved the best spell for last with True Strike. And maybe it's not the best spell, but we saved the most interesting spell for last. Most divisive spell for last. Previously, True Strike was the quintessential waste of a spell. No one ever wanted to use it. Most ridiculously created spell in the entire game. For an action, you can choose a creature and grant them advantage on their next attack. Their next attack. That's it. If you want to get mathematical about it, It's the same thing as attacking now and attacking later. Does not change anything.
But you might hit twice.
You might hit twice if you do it that way instead of using True Strike. So True Strike was a joke. No one liked it. It was literally a meme. I have literally videos about this as a meme. But they changed a lot about it.
Yeah, this is a fantastic upgrade. It is still an action to cast, but it targets yourself. You make one attack with the weapon used in the spell's casting. The attack uses your spellcasting ability for the attack and damage rolls instead of using strength or dexterity. If the attack deals damage, it can be radiant damage or the weapon's normal damage type, your choice.
Huge.
And then the nice part about this is that the damage scales like a cantrip would. So at level 5, you're dealing an extra d6 of damage. At level 11, you're dealing an extra 2d6 of damage. At level 17, an extra 3d6 of damage. And this is kind of fantastic. Again, we're going back to the warrior mages that they're going to find this nice, right? So if I'm going to, an Eldritch Knight that's level 11, I'm going to make 2 attacks, then I'm going to bop in True Strike. And if it hits, I'm going to add an extra 2d6 of damage to it. And that's kind of really nice. I personally think I like Shillelagh more because it opens up the opportunity to use that extra attack cantrip on something else if I want to. But this is extraordinarily viable now, and I think the fact that a lot of people are like, this is must have. It goes from don't you dare take to many saying you have to have this spell. That's a great change.
Yeah, I think that it makes it usable and viable, which is the most important thing the spell needed, right? The fact that it makes it radiant damage if you wanted to is another huge change. And the fact that it scales and gives you additional damage is another huge change as well, right? Like you mentioned, if you have an Eldritch Knight who replaces an attack with a cantrip, you immediately get just your normal attack, but with extra damage on top of it now, right? It's the same thing.
Beautiful.
So I think it's not, I don't necessarily think it's a must-have spell, but it's definitely something heavily worth considering for classes like, a warlock who's like a hexblade warlock, maybe,
sure.
or
the sword thingies, the fire bards, or the blade dancers.
Thank you. Those ones, all of the ones you just said, all of them.
You know who else will probably really like this a lot is the Arcane Trickster Rogue.
They can't get it.
Well, it's on the wizard spell list, so they can.
Oh, you're right. They could get it. Yeah.
Yeah. So they can get it, and it's almost like just buffing that sneak attack a little bit more. And I think that's a nice little thing.
You're right.
It's nice, right? I mean, it's not gonna like break the game. If you make it with a light weapon, obviously, all those dual wielding.
You get an extra 2d6 on top of your sneak attack. Man.
I mean, Arcane Tricksters weren't strong enough compared to other.
Yeah, that's fair.
So
what do you mean? Mage Hand is great.
Legerdemain. Yes.
Yeah, it's a great change.
This is a fantastic change, and it's more than just viable. It is a meta, a whole meta.
So that's it for the cantrips. Every single cantrip change and new cantrip added in 5.24. Before we end the video, Jake, did you have any standout ones that you thought were probably the best change out of all of them?
At least the one that I'm just thinking of now is Shillelagh. I feel like the way it interacts with a magic initiate, I just think that's fun, because why was the Hexblade Warlock such a popular multi-class, right? It was because you always wanted to use your spellcasting modifier to make attacks. So I feel like that's something that opens up a lot of quality of life. I don't see it as broken, but there's a lot to choose from, really. But if I have to pick one, I'm going with Shillelagh.
That's a good one. I would say my personal choice would be Poison Spray. I think that, extra range in the ranged spell attack is a good one. But honestly, I think the majority of cantrips came out ahead on this one, if we're being honest.
I think there's a lot of things I don't like about the 2024 update, but the cantrip changes, for the most part, for me, outside of guidance, I think they got right.
Angry man. Old man Jake's fist to clouds at 2024. Yes. But what do you guys think? Did the cantrips come out ahead of the 2024 update, or are they lagging behind? What do you think? Let us know in the comment section below. Also, before we end the video, make sure you go check out J&J Tabletop. They're beautiful content, beautiful people, and some of the best people that deserve all of the support that they don't have yet. They need more of it. Give them more! And if you're interested, go check out Eve of Ruin, because it's a blast and a half.
You get to see this nerd actually playing a game.
I know. It's my first time ever. Believe it or not, it's actually my first
Captain Forever DM.
Literally, and it's not even 5th edition. It's the new version. What the hell?
It only lasted 11 episodes.
But anyways, thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Go check out Jake at J&J Tabletop, and we'll see you next time.